Good morning, church. We just want to welcome you here to our live stream this morning. And for those of you who have been joining us faithfully since day one, we just thank you so much for that. And for those of you that are new, we want to welcome you. And if you are wanting to stay more up to date with what's going on at TOB, head over to tob.ca and just scroll down and you're going to see Pastor Ken, and then you're going to see a little button you can click, and it's going to allow you to sign up for our e-blasts. And what the e-blasts do is they're not spam, but they keep you up to date and connected with what's going on at TOB. I'd really suggest going over there. Now, I've just been reading Colossians, and one of the things that struck me is that we feel so separated right now, and yet there's something holding us together, and it's Jesus Christ. And Colossians 1:17-18 says this: He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is also the head of the body, the church, and he is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself will come to have first place in everything. I love that. Look, we feel really far apart at times, even though we're connecting maybe online, but this whole time, for this year, Jesus has been holding us together because he's the head, we're the body, and it says so that he holds all things together. So I hope that serves as encouragement for you this morning. Really glad you guys are here with us, and we do hope you enjoy our service and our worship and the sermon from Pastor Ken. We hope to see you here next Sunday.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory, to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming, and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. And the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born, then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not faint. By his blood and in his name
Thank you, Kathy, for leading us in worship today. We've been talking in this whole series, The Gods Must Be Crazy. It's really about the whole thing with COVID and how it has taken down so much in our world. Like it's taken down finances, taken down government, taken down shopping, put us in our homes, done so much damage in many respects. Now here's the problem. Many times we put our confidence in a lot of things like success, finance, government, all these different things. And the question is, should you be putting your confidence in something that can be taken out by a little virus called COVID-19. So we're kind of dealing with some of these things that we tend to raise to little God status in our lives. And so we talked about prosperity last week, and today we want to talk about success, the little g God of success. Now success is a big deal in our world. We all know that. And so I want to talk about what it means, how it affects our lives if we try to put our confidence in that and make it a little g God. So what you need to remember is that little g gods take, and then they turn us into takers. God, the real God, the God of the universe, gives, and He turns us into givers. So how do you know if you're serving a little g God? Well, there's some things that you can look at to know. It means a little g God means that you give it ultimate worth. Like if you were to look at your accounts, your financial accounts and your time and everything like that, like it really gets the top spot. It's what you make your sacrifices for. It's what you will likely flip God off to get. In other words, you'll just do what He says not to do to get what you want. You'll break your promises for this God, and it's also the one that you'll violate your conscience for. So that's kind of the bottom line in terms of what we're talking about today. Now, here's the question I want to ask you. How many of you saw the Super Bowl, 2021 Super Bowl a couple weeks ago? I can't see your hands, so I'm just going to have to take it on faith that some of you saw it. Very strange Super Bowl. If you looked out, it looked like it was just jammed and so on. Of course, everybody's cheering. But if you looked a little bit closer, one of the things they said was that there's cardboard cutouts of people with their pictures on them that couldn't actually be there because of the social distancing, but they actually had their picture there. So very different kind of Super Bowl. One of the things about it, if you watched it, and if you like football, is that the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which was obviously Tom Brady, he dominated the whole thing. I mean, he dominated the whole game. And he's dominated Super Bowls for the last 20 years. He's been in 10 Super Bowls. I went with the New England Patriots, and then this past year for the first time with the Buccaneers. So he's been in 10 Super Bowls, and he's got 7 Super Bowl rings, okay? So this guy's successful, measure of life. He made millions, dated beautiful women, and, one of the greatest athletes of all time. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because he did an interview with 60 Minutes back in 2005, and what he says there is very revealing when it comes to the whole thing of success. And he asks, and so they're talking to him about his success. He says, why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think that there's something greater out there for me? Very interesting question. He's got 4 more now. He says, a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. Well, I reached my goal, my dream, my life, and I think it's got to be more than this. This can't be what it's all cracked up to be. I've done it. I'm 27. What else is there for me? Very good question from somebody who's been a smashing success. When Tom Brady was asked what intimidates him, what scares him, listen to what he says. The end of my playing career, big time. Because I guess I've done this for so long. You've got something you're trying to accomplish, and when that's done, you don't have 80,000 people screaming your name. Very true, isn't it? You know what what's it going to be? I've heard about a lot of astronauts who go to the moon and come back, and they're so depressed because there's nothing that they can do in their lives that can ever fill them that way that does. Tom Brady's 43 now. How much career does he have left? I don't know. So he's not going to have 80,000 fans screaming at him from the sidelines when he finishes his career. Now, I really admire this guy a lot. I admire his skill, I admire his attitude, his honesty, and so on, and also his perspective on success. Success is kind of like a balloon, and you just blow it up a little bit at a time, 2005, 2010, and then all of a sudden, you finish your career and it's gone. It's all deflated. Little g God of success and achievement is really cool. Everybody knows that. It's fun when you're on the way up and when you're, everybody thinks that you're, wonderful and so on. But the question is it enough to have a pile of money? Is it okay? Is it enough to have 10 Super Bowls and 7 Super Bowl rings and your picture in the Football Hall of Fame? Like, will that do it for you at the end of time, at the end of your life? Jesus says, what if you gain the world and you lose your soul? Like, you make it big here. Everybody knows your name. You get paid lots of money to do what you do, but you lose your soul in the process. And obviously, that's a very real possibility. I mean, is success bad? Well, no. But if you focus your life on being a success, if that becomes the little g God in your life, well, then you're going to be in trouble. Pretty predictable, actually, for Tom Brady. You look at the other quarterbacks along the way who were considered to be the best of their day. They shine for a little while, but then it all fades. Joe Namath, was making commercials for women's stockings. And Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, they speak from the sideline. They're not throwing footballs. They're not scoring touchdowns. They don't have 80,000 fans screaming their name because, you see, it comes to an end at some point. Now, here's the deal. Most of the things that we prop up as idols in our lives are not bad things. Football's not a bad thing. Being a really good football player, being a great quarterback is not a bad thing, not at all. But what it is bad and it is evil when you turn a good thing into an ultimate thing. And it's offensive to God. To take one of the gifts that He's given us, or the multitude of gifts that He's given us. For example, you look at Tom Brady. Obviously, he has athletic skill, and good looks. He's got lots of gifts, but they're from God. And it offends God when we take His gifts and we turn them into God's. Now, I want you to listen to the words of someone who had the money and power to take success and achievement, I'm telling you, to a whole new level. Listen to what he said. I tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. And I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who lived in Jerusalem before us. I collected great sums of silver and gold. By the way, he had, 666, talents of gold a year. That was his income. A talent is 75 pounds, so do the math. The treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers. Listen to this. This is his sound system. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. And so I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me. And my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But, and listen to this, as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. Now, if you know, this guy didn't just win 7 Super Bowls. He won the Super Bowl of life. He was sought out by leaders around the world. If there had been TV back then, he would have been in headline news probably just about every day. He held every game. He held every record, agriculture, music, literature, philosophy, architecture. He was kind of the Tom Brady, and the Jeff Bezos and the Albert Einstein and the JFK all combined into one. And yet, his final dissertation on his life is a dissertation about defeat and about boredom and about disillusionment. Now, he started out, this is Solomon, of course, and he started out as a very tender-hearted young man, son of David, most famous king of Israel. And he was loved by God, and he loved God. When his dad named him to be the next king of Israel, it says that God came to him and visited him, and in essence gave him a blank check. Says, you ask for anything, and I'll give you whatever you want. And Solomon, even back then, was wise. And he said, hey, I'm just a little kid. I don't know what to do. Give me wisdom. And God was pleased with his answer, and God gave him everything else. We read about his kingdom and read about his income and his knowledge and his fame as the wisest man who'd ever lived. You think, well, that kind of success would be worthwhile. And yet he took it right out to the limits, and it wasn't enough. So what went wrong? How did everything go so badly? Well, it didn't happen all at once. I think he began to believe in his own importance, and that's what happens. When people tell you you're wonderful, you begin to believe your own press, and he flipped God off. For example, God told him, don't collect wives, don't collect women like baseball cards. But he did it anyway. What do you call it when a person has 1,000 wives? And listen to what happened. This is exactly what God said would happen. In Solomon's old age, they turned his heart to worship other gods, because they worshiped all kinds of gods because they were from lots of different countries. Instead of being completely faithful to the Lord his God, as his father David had been. Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. In this way, Solomon did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to follow the Lord completely as his father David had done. And the Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, and had appeared to him twice. Solomon actually got to the point where he actually offered human sacrifices of his own children to this God. His success made him arrogant enough to think that he was so smart and so sophisticated and successful that he really didn't need to listen to God. He could bank it on his own wisdom. And so this is kind of what happens. This is all sin actually starts, the sin tree starts with idolatry. All the roots are in idolatry. All the stuff that goes on. You read the Ten Commandments, they're all part of this, okay? There's the Psalm 23 test, can your shepherd rescue you? Can your shepherd help you when, you need peace at night and when you stray off the path? That was Solomon's dad's shepherd. David talked about the great shepherd. And here's what happens. This is the trajectory of success. Okay, I forgot the why there. Sorry about that. So there's the visible success. We watch somebody, and from the outside it appears like, man, they soar up and up and up and up, higher and higher and higher. But that doesn't necessarily reveal what's actually going on in their heart. Personal success, many times, pride gets in the way of that, and I'm telling you, it can actually take you right into the ground. Pride is the one that is what creates the distance there. And then there's the wall. Everybody hits the wall. It comes a time when your life is over. Death kind of steals everything away. And that's one of the things that Solomon talks about. So pride has the power to do that. So Solomon's disillusionment with the little g God of success, that's not something unusual. You hear hints of it in Tom Brady. A woman by the name of Kylie Basudi talks very openly about it in a book that she wrote called I'm No Angel. Back in 2008, she won a competition among 10,000 rivals to become Victoria's Secret Angel. Okay, so this is a big deal. There are girls that would sell their souls to get that kind of opportunity. Kylie said that right before this happened, she got married, and as she was moving into this, this is a little bit skanky stuff, okay? She realized that her body belonged to Jesus. She was a follower of Jesus, and it belonged to her husband, not to, the thousands of guys that be out there gawking at her. The other factor is that she saw herself as being a role model. Like she had all these girls writing to her, asking for her secret of success and so on. This is what she says. She said, I finally achieved my biggest dream, the dream I had always wanted. But when I finally got it, it wasn't all that I thought it would be. And so she turned in her wings. And to be honest, see, that's the way it always is. People think, well, if I get the position, if I get the award, if I get the deal of a lifetime, if I get the job of my dreams, man, this is really going to do it for me. Like I'll be able to soar off, into the future and drop dead at 90 with a smile on my face, and it'll be good. What people say, what people actually say is, it was fun, but it's not what I thought it was going to be. And sometimes they traded their soul for it. Now, here's what I know to be true. If you worship and serve the little g God of prosperity or success or achievement or love, and you get followed by millions, it will disappoint you because your soul was made more for that. You were made in the image of God. And it says here in this passage that God was angry with Solomon because he worshiped the gifts instead of the one who had given them. Now, we started this whole series of talks with the story of God's judgment on all the little g gods of Egypt, and he needed to do that to set them free from slavery and also to make sure that the people of Egypt understood that they were serving little g gods, and so that they wouldn't, just kind of fall off the cliff thinking that they were going to make it for them. So Joshua, Moses led them out, and they got into such rebellious mode, like they had seen great things, and yet they kind of flipped God off. So finally, after 40 years, they reach the Jordan River, and, they get challenged. You want to wander for another 40 years, or do you want to actually go into the land and go where God called you to go? And they decided, we want to go into the land. So Joshua led them in, and then there came a point right before he died where he had this talk with them, and this is what he said. So fear the Lord and serve him wholeheartedly. Put away forever the idols your ancestors worshipped when they lived beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt. Serve the Lord alone. But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. Would you prefer the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates? Or will it be the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you now live? But as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. If you've been around the church very long, you maybe have heard that, okay? A lot of people in the GTA, if you talk to them about, which God are you going to worship? They would say, I don't worship any God. I don't worship anything, I just kind of do life as it comes. But the truth is that everybody worships. Everybody has something that they look up to. Everybody has something that they count on. And it might be money, might be success, but everybody has something that they aim their life towards, okay? Worship isn't about churches or temples or candles or robes or holy books or whatever. Everybody worships. And I'll tell you, if you travel around the world, you'll find worship in every community that you stop in. People worship all kinds of stuff. You worship, the word worship comes from worth-ship. It's what is of ultimate worth in your life. And your life eventually spells out what that actually is. Remember Bob Dylan's song? He says, everybody got to serve somebody. Okay? He says, you may be an ambassador to England or France. You might like to gamble. You might like to dance. You might be the heavyweight champion of the world. You might be a socialite with a long string of pearls. But you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed. You're going to have to serve somebody. It may be the devil, it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. And it's true. Your God is what you worship, what you give your time, what you give your money, what you have in your life for. See, the whole issue of worship, that's factory installed, it's kind of basic equipment in human beings. Who or what you serve is whichever you worship. I want to take a little bit closer look at the four potential categories that Joshua mentions here. He says you need to choose. It's kind of like that old, I think it was a TV show called The Price is Right. Is it behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? So door number 1 was the places of worship from their ancestors. And of course, this would have been Mesopotamia. He says, or you can worship the little gods, gods of Egypt. You were there for 430 years. You saw everybody worshiping them. And so maybe that's where you want to serve. Or is it door number 3? You're going to worship the gods of the culture that you're living in right now. Now, Joshua, who's an old man by then, he says, I'm taking door number 4. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Now, the word choose is a great word. Because you see, that's what happens in our lives. We don't just inherit this, although we can, but we choose. We have the ability with our will to decide and to choose who we're going to serve. Now, the first option here, long before Abraham encountered the true God, it says that he and his ancestors, his father and mother and everybody else, worshiped the gods, the idols back in Mesopotamia, okay? And the truth is that we do inherit a part of that. We don't just inherit our looks and sound of our voice and our language from our parents. If prosperity and success are the big deal in our parents' lives, they will be the big deal in our lives. And that's what means you have to look at what you've inherited, what's kind of come down through the line, and ask, is this the God or is this a little g God that I'm going to be throwing my life at? It's a question you have to ask. For Joshua, door number 2 were the gods of Egypt. These were the gods of Israel's past, okay? They spent 430 years in Egypt, which is longer than the United States has been a country. And for us, it's our past. It's the habits that we indulge in. It's the things that we did, things that we, bought, things that we, and some of the habits that we have, jealousy and resentment and things like this. It's a big deal. It's kind of like, well, let me just kind of tell it with a story, okay? When I was a kid, my dad's boss actually came and visited our home and stayed overnight. So we had Skippy. He was a smiling dog. You would like Skippy. Actually, he did smile. And so this guy, we'll call him Brother Henry, he parked his VW Bug in the backyard, which was right in the middle of Skippy's bathroom. So he stepped in Skippy's bathroom, and he had Skippy's bathroom, doggy doo-doo, smeared all over his clutch and his brake pedal and the floor of his car and everything. So if you know anything about this stuff, you know that there's a fragrance to it. You know, like you can smell it because it's there and it doesn't leave unless you wash it off. So we kind of, you know, I really like this guy. He's an amazing guy. So we had kind of this running joke about Skippy. So I found this paper mache, you know, thing of doggy doo-doo, and I thought, oh, so I got to put it on this pillow. So I did that, you know. Sure enough, I found it in my bed the next day. So, you know, just kind of, you know, the way things went. See, for some, the issue isn't, you know, we sometimes drag the smell, drag the scent of a previous life or the stuff that we've done in the past into our current lives, into our worship. And the issue is that, you know, it's not that Jesus can't set us free from that. It's just that we want to follow him and then drag all this other stuff in. It's the gods of the past. Joshua says, is that what you're going to do? You can drag all this stuff, you know, from the past into your life? Third option Joshua mentions here are the gods of the culture that they lived in. Now, they had two gods in that culture of the Amorites, okay? One was Baal, who his name meant owner or master or lord and so on. And people turned to him for having good weather, you know, for growing crops and everything like that. His companion goddess was Ashtoreth, and she kind of required ritual prostitution, which, you know, gave a whole new meaning to, you know, guys asking friends if they wanted to come to church with them. The answer was, yeah, of course, I'd like to come to church with you. God, this so infected the people of Israel that God had to actually send them into quarantine to cure them of this virus because it was so insidious, okay? Now, would you agree that we have some little g gods in our culture, the gods of our culture? I would say that I'm talking about one today. Success is a huge deal. Prosperity is a huge deal. I'm going to be talking in a week or two about the goddess of love. Love, big deal with all the dating websites and everything that goes along with that. So there's all this stuff that goes on in our culture. And what Joshua says, is that what you're going to do? You're just going to copy everybody else? You're going to copy what they worship? And it still happens. Sometimes, as followers of Jesus, you know, this is kind of the closet god or the closet goddess. And I think we've got something here about that, okay? So, who are you going to worship? The God of your ancestors from your past, God of your culture? Or are you going to worship the God of the universe? See, and sometimes for people who follow Jesus, there's the Sunday God. And so we go to see him on Sundays or, you know, visit him on TV channel or something like that. So he's the Sunday God. But actually, the everyday God that we tend to worship is appearance or success or being the most desirable person, you know, in town or money or love or entertainment. And so, you know, there's this closet God that we serve. And so the question is, who are you going to serve? Like, really serve. Who is it? Who's going to be the one that you give your worship and your adoration to? Let's get back to the little g God of success and achievement. Most of us know that, you know, in the GTA, York region in particular, this is one of the favorite places to move for people from other countries. They like to move here and so on, and I get it. Now, do you think that achievement and success, which is a big deal here in the GTA, do you think that that's part of it? Well, I think it probably is. What I want to do is I want to distinguish being successful at something from being a success, because they're different. Now, whenever you attempt something, you know, whether it's, you know, your first job or whether it's a sport or going on a diet, you know, or whether you're trying to put in hardwood in your home, you want to be successful at it. That is, you want to be able to complete the job and you want to do it as well as you possibly can. That's normal, okay? There's nothing wrong with that at all. So what's the difference in our world between being successful at what you do and being a success? Well, to be a success means that, you know, you've scored well in the ways that, our culture keeps score. And there is a scorecard in our culture, isn't it, I mean, making money, that's a part of the scorecard. Getting status, having people know who you are, that's part of the scorecard. Achievement, that's part of the scorecard. Having a prestigious job, that's part of the scorecard. Being a desirable person, that's part of the scorecard. Having all the trademark symbols of success, those are all parts of the scorecard. That's how people keep score. Now, there are certain nuances to this too. For example, if Tom Brady, was like a champion badminton player, do you think he would have the status and be marrying, a supermodel wife? Probably not, because, football is a more prestigious sport than badminton is. So this whole thing is about how well you are doing in comparison to other people, So on the money scorecard, how well do you compare it with other people? On the status. So we tend to compare. Now, what would Jesus say to Tom Brady? Well, I don't know. I mean, they didn't have football back then. So we have to kind of pick up something comparable from back around 30 AD. And there is a story there. We talked about it last week. It's a guy, and I don't think Jesus would mind if we used it again. This guy, like Tom Brady, was young, okay? He was accomplished at what he did, and he was rich. Really, 3 big scorecards there. We don't know his name. We only know his accomplishments. Now, for a person to be young, and probably somebody that they would call young back then would probably be in their late teens or early 20s, so really young. He was apparently a religious leader. He was a ruler. Like he had risen to this, kind of as at the head of his class, ridden up through the ranks. And he was also, young, rich, and successful. So he was on his card, he had the package, okay, that, the women wanted back then. He was way out in front of all the rest of the people. Now, the account tells us he ran up to Jesus and he wanted to know how to get to heaven, how he could have heaven on top of, kind of as a cherry on top of all his other successes in life. And so Jesus, confronts him about these gods that he's serving. One of them was success. It says Jesus looked him in the eye and says he loved him. He loved him because he could see the potential. He said, why don't you take all of your scorecard, trade it in, give the money to the poor, and then come and follow me? Well, that'd be a little bit like asking Tom Brady, to give up football or turn in all of his, his Super Bowl rings. This guy didn't exactly say, oh, no way I'm going to do that. You've got to be kidding. He just went away sad because he liked Jesus, but not that much. And you see, this is the deal, and this is a deal for you and me too. Who would I be without my scorecard? That's what Tom Brady's asking. He says, I'm going to reach the end of my career someday. I'm not going to have 80,000 people yelling my name from the stands. So who am I in that moment? That's a pretty important question. The Greek word for success, it doesn't have one in particular, but the equivalent in Greek would be the word blessed, or makarios is actually the actual word that's used in the Greek. And it basically meant, having the happiness that the gods have, okay? Which, you imagine that kind of happiness, pretty good. And sometimes Christians still use this kind of word blessed as kind of a humble synonym for successful. Somebody comes along and says, man, you're really successful. You got this business that's a success, and you got a nice car, you got a beautiful wife and kids and so on, or you got a beautiful husband and kids, and they say, you're really successful. And so what happens in our culture is people will sometimes say, kind of look down and say, well, I'm blessed. Now, that can mean, truly, I understand where it all comes from. Or it can actually mean, yeah, you better believe I'm successful. But if I say it out loud and act proud, I might actually jinx the whole thing. But Jesus defined the word blessed, which could be translated successful. And you know where he starts? He starts with humility. That's where success starts. He said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for those are the king, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And it's not talking about, the fact that they're poor and they gave all their money away and now they can go to heaven. That's not what it's saying. It's saying the poor in spirit, the people who understand that everything worthwhile in life comes from God. They have humility before God. And it goes on to describe them. It says people who want to live the right way, people who want to do what's right, people who want to have a pure heart, people who are merciful, and people who are peacemakers. These are the blessed. These are the successful people. Well, this is different, isn't it? From, being the one who in every skirmish comes out on top and we'd be glad to give you an interview if you ask for it. What Jesus said about true greatness and success starts with humility. And I'll tell you this, in our world, the little g God of success never leads to humility. It just doesn't. Tends to lead toward arrogance. In our world, success would be defined by what you've achieved, by how much money that you have, by who you play golf with, and character and love and grace and spiritual depth and making a difference has almost nothing to do with what success is in our world as it gets defined in the 21st century. If you're success, if you're the rich young ruler and stuff like this, well, what do? Well, you better enjoy the run, you see, because it doesn't last. Someone who's going to come along who's a younger and richer and more important ruler, what do you do then? What do you do then? See, because then the clock runs out and you have to hand your soul in to the one who gave it to you. Let's do it in terms of another balloon. So you keep going for your whole life. Success, more success. You can see the success, right? And then at the end, it doesn't take too much. And it's gone. It's gone. And what sometimes you realize is you spent your whole life climbing this ladder. You're climbing this ladder. You're kicking off all the other people who are ahead of you, and they're all laying in a pile down at the bottom. And you keep climbing and climbing and climbing. And then you get to the top of the success thing. Where it's, leave, that's all, folks. And it's game over. And you realize that it's not what you thought it was going to be. It's possible to trade your life for success and totally miss what really matters. Get your ladder leaning against the wrong building. And the shock for many successful people is that, like Solomon, they realize, that like they're going in the wrong way. They're going in the wrong direction. And Jesus put it in really stark terms so we wouldn't miss it. This is what he says. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. And then listen to this. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very soul? What if you get to the end, you realize that your ladder's been leaning against the wrong building. You've climbed the thing up to the top. And then you're going to hand your soul in to the one who gave it. And you realize that you've been flipping them off all along for some little g God called success. And here's where you and I need to be really careful in a world that has a skewed and twisted idea of success. See, the false prophets of success will tell you that you have to pay attention to their little trinity, the trinity of money and achievement and power. You know where this lands you almost without exception? It's pride. It's pride. And pride is what makes it almost impossible for God to deal with us. That was Solomon's problem. He got to the point where he was so arrogant, he was smart, he was successful, he had everything he wanted, and he totally flipped God off. And it says God was angry with him because of the fact that he didn't listen and took advantage of all that he had been given, all the gifts he had been given without giving acknowledgement to the giver. Now, I want to finish today by talking about what I believe are two really important things. And as I talk about them, you may want to, throw stuff at the TV or wherever you're watching and so on. You might want to turn the channel or whatever it is. But here's what I see, okay? And I could be wrong. As I watch parents training up their kids in this part of the GTA, I see a lot of parents, whose clear goal for their kids is to achieve and be successful. And you could, kind of illustrate it like this, like they're pushing their kids. And what they seem to be pushing their kids at in the GTA is success. It's the God of success, little g God of success. So, some parents, if you came from here from another country, would say, well, we brought you to Canada so that you could get the best education possible. Why? So that you could get a really good, prestigious job, which is, well, a job that makes you a lot of money, pays a lot of money, and, and gets you kind of the admiration that other people want to give you. Why? Well, that will make you happy. Really? I mean, is that what God is hoping for their lives? See, there's not a thing in the world wrong with doing well, with doing very well, with using the gifts and the opportunities and the abilities that God gives us. But to push your children at what our culture calls success is a mistake. Not a mistake to help them want to do their very best, but is a mistake to push them toward this God, this little g God. What parents are communicating by doing this is that this little g God of success is worthy of our worship. It's worthy of the very best that we can offer, and you can aim your life at it, and it'll bring happiness and satisfaction. And I'm telling you, that is absolutely not true. Could be, that this also circles a little bit around you, because, if your kids are successful and they get into the right universities and, and they have everything that everybody wants and they're admired by other people and so on, then you kind of get bragging rights as parents, right? Those are my kids over there. You see how successful they are? What does that say about me? I'm a successful person too. And what you teach them to do is trade the God of the universe for a handful of cheap trinkets of success and miss the glory of knowing and serving God. You have to be careful because you see kids inherit this stuff. Second important thing that I just want to mention is this. Success, as our world sees it, leads directly to something that I've talked about already, but it's what God hates, and that's pride. It's pride. Key to success, apparently in God's eyes, at least as it's talked about through Jesus, is humility. Success is being poor in spirit and being part of what God is up to in this world. And it's strange, isn't it, that achievement and success in our world system appears to be the mortal enemy of true success, which is humility. Because you see, when you're rich and desirable and noteworthy in our world, what happens is you begin to believe your own press. You begin to believe that you really are that good. You begin to believe that, other people ought to be like you because you're so successful. And you got to take a step back into how Jesus describes a successful and a blessed life. See, when you're humble, you realize that no matter how capable and how smart that you are, no matter what you have, it all comes from God. And God has called you, His calling in your life. I mean, Jesus defined success. He said success is learning how to love God with all your heart and soul and strength and mind, and to love others as you love yourself. If you look at Jesus and the way our world looks at success, you'd have to say that He was a failure. He never, met with kings, all the important people and so on, didn't play golf with them. He was despised by the important people of His day. He never made any money to speak of, okay? And He died a criminal's death. I mean, when you died on a cross back in that culture, you were a failure. It was written in big red letters all over your life. And yet Jesus defines true success. He's the definition. For Him, success, again, is loving God with all you are and loving other people in a way and serving other people in a way that's unmistakable. And how Jesus dealt with this young, wealthy, successful guy, who seemed to have it all, brings out the toughest thing about clearing your heart of the little g God of success and all the other little g gods that demand your attention. They have to be replaced. Jesus said, why don't you replace this little g God that's going to lead you off in the wrong direction with me? Why don't you come and follow me? And it's the same challenge that we get. But He wouldn't do it. And I'm telling you, it is so easy to get taken in and fooled by this little g God of success. Yeah, I know. You look at me and say, okay, Ken, well, you're not that great of a success and so on. But, when I went to seminary and university and so on and traveled, I saw a lot. And here's the deal. I didn't want to be just a pastor. I wanted to be a successful pastor. At the time, I really didn't think I was running after some little g God. I mean, I was serving God, trying to serve other people, wasn't too worried about money and stuff. I wanted to make a difference and so on. But the sneaky little voice down in my subconscious, if I admitted it, was, but it wouldn't hurt if you could write a book, and be noticed and be sought after. That was the part that I didn't really talk about or think about that seriously. I remember one time I was working at this camp, working with the youth and stuff, and I had, tried some new hair thing or with my hair and stuff. And this guy walked by me, he was a pastor. He said, "You think you're so hot?" And I kind of blew it off, But I thought, maybe I should have taken that as a reality check. And it was one of the factors in my life, wanting to do well, wanting to be successful, that kind of drove me towards being a workaholic, and I hurt my wife and I hurt my kids with it. See, this stuff wasn't like this big, all of a sudden aha moment where God had to kick me off this little pedestal I'd built for myself. But I'm telling you, it's kind of this gradual wake-up call of how success and the desire for success has a way of pulling you away from God. This became real to me more recently, 4 kind of superstars, people that I really looked up to and admired in ministry, kind of put them on a pedestal. And they were successful, and they were sought after, and speakers, and had influence and stuff, spoke to my heart. God worked through them in my life. And they went down. Most recent was Ravi Zacharias. And I'm telling you, I loved that man. I still do. I loved his mind. I loved what he did for the kingdom. I loved for the way he was able to stand on university campuses and speak truth and so on. But you look at what's happened recently, and you think, wow, man, what a mess. Now here's my thought. And I'm just going to leave it with you and let you deal with it. It is really, 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 really hard to be seen as a success and have power and advantage that comes with that, and keep your head on straight. See, it's possible to have this upward curve of success, and meanwhile, what's going on in your personal life is you're taking a dive toward the ground. And you have to be honest. If success, as defined by this world system, as achievement, making money, being admired, being beautiful, if it's really important to you, and that's seen in how you're raising your kids, it might be a little g God. And if you're not careful, you could trade your soul for it. Jesus said it's possible to gain the world and lose your soul. And so I just want to challenge you. Choose today who you're going to serve, because it will make a huge difference in your life. Let's pray. God, I realize that what I'm talking about today is probably pretty obvious. There's no big smashing new truths here. But it's so easy for us to get sucked into our culture and sucked into the mindset of success and sucked into the whole thing of how we push our kids and how we push ourselves in the direction of, instead of, loving and serving God and loving and serving others, to serving ourselves. Keep us free from that. Help us to see it for what it really is. Amen. Dan's going to come and lead us in worship, and then I'll be back.
All things have passed away. Your love has stayed the same. Your constant grace remains the cornerstone. Things that we thought were dead are breathing in life again. You cause your sun to shine on darkest night. For all that you've done, we will pour out our love. This will be our anthem song. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. We love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore.
So this is the blessing that I want to leave you with. May God's power in your life make you truly successful in every way. May He bless you with humility. May He bless you with the longing in your heart to do what's right and to treat others with love and make that kind of a difference in the world. May God go with you in all you do through this day. Amen.